Hey, I'm Brandon. Some people call me B-Tang. Um, this is going to be my LCS tier list of how I think each team will perform and how the teams will look by the end of the split. Obviously, there's 8 teams, so should be pretty quick to really rank these teams. I've been watching LCS for probably since season 4, tail end of season 3, when Bjergsen first initially joined TSM. So I've been watching for pretty long time, so I would say I have some insight of how these teams have played as a longtime fan and someone who has hit Masters, peak GM. I can say how these teams will most likely play out with these rosters. Obviously, some of these rosters are very new, playing together, so they had a lot of time in the off season to try and gel. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But we'll obviously go from bottom tier teams all the way up. Um, so let's just get started. In my opinion, I think Immortals is probably the worst team in LCS. I think this will probably be the most competitive LCS split we've had. Um, if last split was any indication of how this split will go, um, the Immortals kept their same roster, and I think obviously while they were really competitive in a lot of their games, it felt like I don't think making a coaching change will solve their issues of winning more games than some of these other teams. I think Immortals on paper, their roster consists of uh who is their roster actually? Let me look. It's Castle, Armeo, Mass, Tactical Day. Yeah, so this is the same exact roster they ran from Spring Split. Um, Obviously, I think these players are. I think Castle's a really good player, really solid player. But everyone else on the roster is kind of lackluster, subpar. Tactical still has potential to hit probably top 5. Obviously, that's not a huge benchmark considering it's only 8 teams in the LCS now. But I think that Tactical as an ADC player has performed really well in Spring Split, so hopefully he can continue that into the summer. But we'll have to see. But I think personally that Immortals is probably not going to look the greatest um, compared to the rest of these teams. All right. With that being said, Immortals is in D tier. I hate to put Shopify Rebellion here, but I do think that Shopify Rebellion is gonna be ninth place with right above Immortals. Maybe they'll have one more win, one less win. Obviously, it's gonna be really hard to truly power rank these teams and really get a feel of how good these teams are because it's single elimination or single round robin. So, not being able to play each team twice is not really ideal for at least statistics, right? Um, Obviously it's best of 3, so you consist of more games, but or potentially more games. But I don't think the data will show a lot in a single round robin. Personally, I would like to see best of 3 be double round robin, but obviously with the way LCS is shifting towards their merger now, um, it'll be I'm sure it'll grow over time. But onto Shopify Rebellion, I think that Shopify Rebellion, last split, um, you know, they had some very interesting drafts. To be honest, they were very creative in their drafts, but they kind of got their win just by kind of cheesing in those drafts. And a lot of the teams don't really expect how to play against those champions. Insanity, for instance, is their mid laner. Um, their roster is Fake God. Tomio is now joining the roster. He's replacing Boogie, and I think, to be honest, this is gonna be like a downgrade. I don't think Tomio's that much better than Boogie, their old jungler in Spring Split, and Insanity, Bvoy, and Zazel. Um, to be honest, I think the roster is gonna be worse than last split. They could potentially even finish 10th or 8th, I should say. Um, so Don't think Tomio. I think Tomio. We'll have to see how he does in LCS. Obviously, this is his first split in LCS, right? He's been waiting for this moment, and in Academy, he's been performing really, really well, right? But we'll see how he makes the jump from Academy up to LCS against some of the top tier junglers. Because I think LCS has a lot of really good junglers right now, so it'll be a really good testament to see where he's at as a player and how he can mesh well with the team. But again, like I said, I think that overall, Shopify Rebellion's drafts were really, really interesting and kind of led them to some of their wins. Um, so I think they kind of cheese some wins out. So I think maybe it'll happen again. We'll have to see. Um, I do think some of these players are actually better than just like niche picks, but I think top lane is a very weak point. Fakeod, every time he's been in LCS, he's been kind of a weak point for their team. Every team he's been on, so but he is the weak side top laner to be honest. So he doesn't get as much resources and as much help as maybe some other top laners would. But I just don't see this team really succeeding. Just their style of play is probably going to be playing towards B-Boy. B-Boy is very, very good. I think he's top tier ADC, and I think if they beat some of the top tier teams, obviously with best of threes, um, it'll be due to their bot lane success. I think their bot lane is really, really good, um, and stacks up pretty well against the rest of the LCS, but their top side is kind of lacking in my opinion. Moving on to the C tier. Obviously there's 5 tiers, so may have one S tier team, maybe one A tier team. Just depends. Obviously, these rosters are new, like I said. So it's just a prediction. Can't say for sure how these teams are actually gonna play out, but I think Energy C tier. I think that's Huhi. To be honest, last splits FBI and Huhi were pretty solid, but something about this Energy roster was really lacking compared to how they placed at Worlds when they made top 8. Um, Obviously going from Huhi to Ignar or Ignar to Huhi is it's not like a huge difference, right? Ignar has been a very selfless player though. Hui's the same way, but I think the champion pool kind of hinders him in the fact that Hui goes for a lot more creative picks, right? And if these creative picks don't work out, then it's really, really hard for them to play bot lane, and they suffer because of it. Ignore is a lot more of that standard playmaking support, and I think Hui has that type of potential, but often drifts away and tries to counter the meta essentially, right? That is a good thing, right? To try and counter the meta, but who he kind of goes above and beyond that essentially. But Dokla also had a really really rough split last split in spring. I think he's getting solo killed a lot. He had really rough laning phases. Palafox also wasn't playing up to the potential last split. And I think this split we might see improvements from Energy, but against the rest of these teams, I think the rest of the teams are just straight up better in each role individually. Maybe Energy's team play can carry them to top 3, top 5. We'll have to see. But in my opinion, I think Energy is C tier. I don't really see that big of an improvement from last split to this split unless they just go God mode like they did in last year in their summer playoffs. Moving on to the next team, I think I will put Dignitas in B tier. Now Dignitas revamped their entire roster. They brought in Licorice, they brought in Spica, they brought in Jensen, Sven, and the only remaining player was Isles, their support. Um, Obviously, on paper, this roster should potentially make Worlds. It's a bunch of veterans plus Isles. But Spica has been off for a split. Sven has also been off for a split, so we'll have to Licorice the same way, right? There's these players that came off took a split off in order to do streaming, do content, or they couldn't find opportunities. Um, but obviously they've been playing solo queue, trying to keep their mechanics up to stay pro ready. And I think we'll probably see some rust. Obviously it's a lot of veterans. Jensen got kicked off of FlyQuest for quad. Um, but we'll see how this team meshes. I think this team will probably play towards their bot side. Obviously with Sven Isles, should be a very strong bot lane. Spica can play AP junglers. Very, very good jungler. I think this Dignitas team reminds me of 2020 TSM when they had Broken Blade, Bjergsen, Double Lift, Biofrost, and they won the split. Um, I think that team is gonna play the same, similar to how Dignitas is gonna operate in 2024 summer. You're gonna see Spica on these carry type of junglers, right? Jensen, the biggest question, right, is he gonna be able to play these AD mid laners that are in the meta right now, like Corki, Tristana? The meta is not really in Jensen's favor, to be honest. Um, a lot of these mages are kind of just okay. Like Azir took a big hit, to be honest. We may see some Aesol. Hui is okay, but it's just gonna see a lot more AP jungler, and we'll have to see if Jensen can match with these AD mid laners. You might see Tristana, Corki, potentially Jace, Yone even. Yone is okay, but we'll just have to see. That's just my opinion of Dignitas. I think they'll finish top 5, and they could potentially reach top 3. They could potentially represent us at Worlds, but we'll just have to actually see their gameplay, right? This is just completely based off of what I've seen last splits and how I expect these rosters to play out. Um, Moving on. I think 100 Thieves is probably better than Dignitas. They have the MVP Quid from last split. Quid had a really, really amazing split and a really big glow up from summer of last year to spring, and now I expect the same type of play. Quid was really carrying in spring playoffs, so I hope that he is able to keep up consistent play. But this was a team full of rookies, right? They weren't really expected to do much. Team of General Sniper, or a Sniper, River, Quid, uh, Meech, and Ayla. They weren't expected to really make a splash, but they managed to finish top 2 the regular season of spring, um, due to mid jungle. And I think that type of play is going to continue, and Sniper's only going to get better, right? Sniper was solo killing top laners left and right last split. He's very good mechanically. Obviously, still a very young player and still has a lot to learn. I think, obviously, there's some suspect TP plays, whereas little disjointed. Um, and Meech is obviously going to grow as a player too, right? Completely new player into LCS. I can only see this team growing and getting better. Um, After their time off in the off season, they have more time to just even gel more as a team, get better mechanically. So I can see this team making top 3 as well, top 2 even. Like, I think B tier onwards has the potential to win the split, but it's just a matter of will they? Will they find the right consistency? Will all the stars align, right? Because winning LCS, you have to have a little bit of luck. Still, obviously, some skill. Like, you have to peak at the right moment. Um, and I think this 100 Thieves roster obviously has the potential to do that. Quid, like, they're all very, very young players and led by a veteran River in the jungle. I just expect their team play to just be even better in the split. And I really respect Golden Glue as a coach, seeing as what he did with DSG last in Academy last year. So I'm really excited to see this roster, and I think they'll finish at least top 4, top 5 guaranteed in this coming split. That leads us to 8 here. Actually, scratch that. I think that C9 probably gonna be B tier. There's just too much unknowns for me. Uh, well, I won't say too much unknown, right? Thanatos is coming over. He's a very, very hyped challenger player from LCK. I think it was Damwon Academy is where he came from. He's been very, very hyped up as a very, very good mechanical player. Um, and then the rest of the roster stayed the same with Blabber, Jojo Pion, uh, Berserker, and Vulcan. Berserker had a really, really rough split. Vulcan, like overall, C9 as a roster last split, really, really disappointed. I think they definitely did not meet expectations from fans' point of view. Um, but that's obviously to be expected, right? They were expected to just flat out win the splits. Anything other than that was considered a failure. And I think with this roster, it's probably expected to do the same. Maybe not as high as expectations as the last roster, but with Thanatos coming in, new coach Reaper, um, I expect this team to be more disciplined in how they play. Obviously, we saw Jojo Pion last split getting caught out a lot in side lanes. He was either the hero for C9 or C9, or he looked like he was just completely inting. But C9 looked like really, really passive, surprisingly, last split. So I hope to see some more aggression from them this split. Um, Obviously, with a new rookie top laner, and we'll have to see how his English is because bringing in a Korean top laner just flat out, um, the unknown variable is always how good is their English, how well is their communication of this team going to be, and hopefully, I'd like to see some improvements from just everyone on the roster last split to this split. I want to see Berserker play better. Like a lot of these like last split C9 were was just bad to be honest. Like it just felt like they just slowly bled out and lost the game, and kind of not really enjoyable to watch. So I hope this team is able to bounce back. I expect better results, but again, really unknown variable with Thanatos in the top lane. Um, but he's been a hyped up top laner for a really long time, so I expect maybe better results. But we'll have to see. In the A tier, I have FlyQuest. They only swapped out their top laner, or their mid laner, sorry. The rest of the roster remains the same. Top lane is Bwipo. Jungle is Inspired. They're bringing in mid laner from their academy roster, Quad, who's been performing really, really well in FlyQuest Academy. FlyQuest Challengers. FlyQuest Challengers won the academy split, I believe, and he was just smashing a lot of the mid laners. It's been a long time coming for Quad, so we'll have to see how he does. I think he has been smashing, obviously, right? It's the same thing with Tomio when I made the Shopify Rebellion point is how well is he going to make that next jump from challengers or academy to up to pro, just into LCS. I think with this roster, Inspired Whippo are very, very vocal about how they want to play, and their bot lane Masu and Whippo, Masu and Busio, um, like their bot lane has been very, very solid on their own. They don't really need to. This team really wants to play aggressive, right? They always want to look for these plays. You heard Inspired in the interviews in the off season, or just interviews after losses about how he felt like Jensen wasn't really doing much. Um, and I don't really think it's a fair point, to be honest, considering that obviously Jensen has always been a control mage player, right? He plays his lane very, very well. Maybe not roaming heavy as dominant, but he will always make sure that his lane is just solid. And I think didn't really mesh well with Inspired Bwipo. I expect this team to be more aggressive, obviously. They made it to the finals last spring. They made it to MSI. Kind of disappointed at MSI. But obviously with rookie Masu and Busio, it's kind of hard to really say where they're at. But I think with their experiences from MSI that they will improve in their play. Um, we'll have to see how Quad does, but I do expect this roster to be about at the same level as they were last split, if not better, with quad in, with the aggressive laning, with the aggressive jungler, aggressive top laner, with all these picks. You're gonna see a better version of FlyQuest, or we should see a better version of FlyQuest this split. And obviously, in S tier, pains me to say it, as I am not the biggest fan of APA. But respect is where respect is due. This TL roster did win the split last split, so coming off their MSI run against finishing top 8, I believe it was top 6, somewhere around there. Bringing the same exact roster from their MSI run: Impact, Jungle Empty, mid laner APA, ADC Yon, and core JJ as their support. We saw a very, very new, invigorated TL in the playoffs and at MSI as well, right? They had a bad series against Top Esports. It sucks, whatever, right? But it sucked that they didn't play the way they expected to themselves to play. This team is obviously very, very aggressive, right? They're often compared to a LPL team with their aggression. They're always looking for these plays, looking to do stuff on the map, play with, just take these essentially 50-50 fights. And I think this roster is only going to get better after the MSI experience. APA really improved throughout the playoffs. I know he talks a lot in all chat, talks a lot of smack from a viewer point of view. But he obviously really wasn't playing well, right? Deserved a lot of flack early on in the playoffs. I think he really improved throughout the playoffs and even improved at MSI, even though he had some struggles. I think this roster, on paper, potential to win the split again. And obviously they have the gel, right? They gelled as a team last splits. They're keeping the same 5 players, so typically that means when you keep the same 5 players, usually they've gelled really well together and they work well together, so they know a system. They have a system in place, and I think TL is gonna play the same way. They're gonna play super aggressive, play towards their bot lane, with mid jungle moving towards bot lane. Just keep looking for these plays, take these fights, take these aggressive fights, skirmishes, and we should see a better TL to split. And I hope, from my point of view, this would be the most competitive LCS split. I think these I think every team has the potential to beat up on each other and keep games close. Well, obviously, there has to be a winner, there has to be a loser, there has to be ranked teams that are below standards and above standards. And I think this is how LCS is going to go in summer 2024. I hope you guys like this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, um, and hopefully get noticed. I have a lot of knowledge in League. Obviously, I would love to be able to watch LCS, co-stream it, but obviously that's for bigger streamers. In my opinion, a lot of these rosters are interesting to say the least, but I think LCS is starting to grow, start to look a little bit better than they have in past years. I won't say they're obviously better than Korea or China, because I think LPL and LCK are just still top tier, but LCS is getting better. So again, I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and if you ever want to check out more content from me, make sure to join up in my Twitch channel. My Twitch channel will be in the description below. And I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are. And I'm out.